Welcome to the Millennial Diner podcast. It's Jeff. I'm here at the diner with Phil as usual. And today, this is super rad. We have James here with us. Say hey, James.
Hey guys.
James, we're so excited to have you at the diner. I know I'm starving. Darla, our waitress, is here. Phil, does it look like our face is falling off a little bit?
It does seem like it's fallen off a little bit. I don't know. What is it like hot? Is it like melting? Is it just falling off? What is it
I
doing?
don't know. It's like I just kind of want to like pull out her face for a second and see what happens. Well, we'll see. Maybe we'll do it at the end of the show. Stay tuned. Anyway, Darla, with your face falling off, I'm gonna go with, last show of the season, so gotta go big. Gotta go with a big stack of pancakes, vegan pancakes, please. Gonna do a little tofu scramble on the side, some seitan bacon, hail seitan, and I'll have a hot coffee with oat milk.
Oat milk all the way.
All the way.
Mm-hmm.
I sorry, I saw a meme the other day and I thought of you, Phil, but basically the meme was like, I swear I've been offered drugs less than I've been pushed drugs on me less than I've been pushed oat milk on me, which I thought was something like you would appreciate.
I do. Well, every time I go to the coffee place, they're like, "Do you want oat milk?" And I'm like, "Fuck no, thank you so much. I'm all set. I will have my my whole milk. Thanks so much."
Cows are shaking their hoofs at you, Phil. James, what are you gonna have? I know the menu is huge and there's so much to offer, but what's your go-to diner order?
Ooh, go-to diner order. That's a good question. I suppose you don't have to just get breakfast at a diner, right?
There are 17 pages from which to choose. Go
No
knock
doubt.
yourself out. Yeah.
No doubt, absolutely. No, the pancakes sound good. I think that I'm a pancake man. So I think that I'm going to mimic your order, Jeff. I'm gonna have some pancakes. I'm gonna have some scrambled eggs
Nice.
and a black coffee.
Ooh, yeah.
Oh, there you go.
That's good. Classic. I love the stack of pancakes and some kind of egg or fake egg on the side. I think that's the way to go. With a little protein. Phil, is it going to be a trifecta? Are you going to get pancakes today?
Well, it's 17 pages from which to choose, so I'm going to flip a couple more pages, and I'm going to go with rye toast with a little bit of butter and a black coffee. That sounds pretty good. Yeah.
Well, there you go. You had a big chance to. We never had a hat trick of meals at this diner, and I thought maybe we'd get it today, but nonetheless, here we are. But enough of my disappointment in Phil's ordering technique. James, you're here. We like to come here and talk about punk rock and emo and hardcore and all sorts of stuff from that world. That's why we come to the diner after a show, before a show, after getting a new album, going to the record store, whatever. This is why we come here. What is kind of like your history with finding the
With
bands
diners?
that you love? Well, diners too. Yeah, always happy to hear about that.
Special shout out, or I guess a rest in peace to the Gold Rock Diner in Hartford, Connecticut, which was definitely a post gig hangout. It's now an IHOP. Yeah.
Oh, that's so disappointing.
Yeah, I just drove past it on 84 over the weekend, and hate to see it. But the Gold Rock Diner, yeah, for sure. Sorry, what was the question?
So I guess like you like this kind of music that we're talking about here,
I do.
the scene music. What kind of got you there? Like, what are some of the what was your path to discovering it, and what bands were the ones and artists who kind of like just became your bands?
Yeah, super great question. I don't know. It's probably a similar, probably a similar story for a lot of people that like kind of found their way into this stuff. Being of like a similar age, I'm in my late 30s, and so was kind of like a child of like 90s radio rock.
Yeah.
I didn't come from a super musical household. I am the oldest sibling. I'm the oldest of four boys, so I didn't have really. My mom liked music, but it wasn't anything that like really resonated with me, especially when I was younger. and so yeah, it was really kind of just whatever was being played on the radio. So I mean, enjoyed and the sort of like the early to mid 90s, um and maybe maybe sneaking towards the late 90s, at least from my perspective, was the last time that there was like really good rock music like on the radio.
Hmm.
Um, and so it was a lot of that kind of stuff. I mean, and I still have a fondness for like Goo Goo Dolls, Third Eye Blind. That first Third Eye Blind record is massive. Oasis, stuff like that. And then I remember, kind of like pretty tangibly, like towards like the late 90s, when like kind of when like Blink, crossed over from like, the sort of underground into more mainstream radio. And so I grew up in Hartford, Connecticut, and they used to do this festival called 104 Fest. Um, and the lineups, early on were like pretty insane if you look back. I mean, like I remember one year in particular, it was like Blink, Saves the Day, Sum 41, Good Charlotte played. Like kind of like everybody, from that sort of like so yeah, it was probably like Blink, sort of like latter part of like Dude Ranch being in the zeitgeist, and then of course Enema of the State.
Yeah.
And so I remember hearing that stuff, and going like, oh shit, this is different. Like I don't know how, like I don't know how this is different. Um, but it's different, and I like it, you know. Um, and so a friend and I joke often about, and maybe you guys have people um in your life like this, but I think about my friend Eric, who is like a huge music fan, and grew up really loving a lot of similar stuff, but he didn't like my friend Chris and I joke like, because Chris has played in bands and is also a big fan of this stuff. And when he first met Eric, Eric was talking about Saves the Day and stuff like that. And afterwards, Chris was like, "Oh, I didn't know Eric was into that kind of stuff." And I go, "Yeah, he was into all that stuff, but it didn't become his personality. Like it didn't like some people hear, and I'm kind of envious of people in this sense. I mean, I guess not really, but like there's like kind of this cool allure to it. Some people hear the music and go like, "Oh, that's good music." Anyways, I also like playing hockey, and I also like, plenty of other things, as opposed to me who heard it and was like, "Oh, I like this. This is who I am now. This is
Yeah.
the only thing I think about from the minute I wake up in the morning until the minute I go to bed. Um, how do I just ingest all of this 24/7?" And so that's what it was, and which I think is probably a similar, story to maybe you guys and, maybe
Well,
others who just
well,
like,
yeah, definitely. What you just said really like hit me hard because I was like, I am definitely the person who was like going to Pacific Sunwear and getting Hurley shirts and wearing Dickie shorts
no doubt.
to, because Blink-182 were my fashion models as well as anything else. Like, and then from there, anything that like the bands, guys in the bands or women in bands were like wearing at the time, I had to get that band t-shirt or I had to get that. And then like, you think you're gonna grow out of it. And I still to this day, I mean, like My Chemical Romance is my entire personality. And I'm okay with
Mm-hmm.
that.
Sure. Yeah, sure. Yeah, totally. Absolutely. I agree. And as we've all had to sort of like assimilate into um adult, like adult American life, I like to think that a little bit of it still sort of lives under the surface a little bit. I mean, Phil and I have certainly talked about this to great length, the fact that
Yeah.
it's just sort of, it never really leaves you.
No,
Um,
I think there's pressure for it to leave you. I think a lot. We've talked about this before too. Where like you reach a point where you're like, oh, this movie is for adolescents and teenagers or whatever, right? And then
mhm,
you're like, oh, it's time to, just listen to Genesis all the time, I guess, whatever it is. Nothing wrong with
mhm,
Genesis. But yeah, it's like for it to stick around and then also allow you to time travel back to when the time was great, but also to like follow bands and find new bands that still fit that, and like especially following bands for years and seeing how they've grown and things like that.
Hmm.
But yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And so a big part of a big part of that development came from like, like cruising through liner notes and reading thank you lists and, like you said, looking for shirts and stickers on the guitars and just like insatiably, kind of consuming, um, anything even related to to this music, to the bands that we love, to the culture, stuff like that. I mean, and I know we'll be talking about it a little bit later on, but I mean, that's, um, you know, I remember watching an interview with Tom DeLonge from Blink and him citing Jimmy Eat World as like a kind of like a muse or like an influence in a sense, and being like, well, who's that? I want to know who that is. Or I mean, they took Alkaline Trio out, on
Yep.
one of their like,
Right.
pretty big first tours. And so that, another one of those kind of like gateways. So Blink really was kind of the gateway. And then and it went I definitely took a little bit of a turn towards the more like punk side of things, and kind of the more like hardcore punk sort of things,
Right.
side of things. I mean, once getting into like a lot of the sort of like early Revelation stuff, like
Hmm.
Gorilla Biscuits, Youth of Today, stuff like that really kind of that was like that was kind of like an off ramp from, or that was like a whole nother rabbit hole that became a really important part of my life later on. But yeah, no, truly Blink, in the late 90s, was the that was the whole start of it.
That makes a lot of sense. I feel like Blink. I always look back at Enema of the State, like 1999. Like Enema of the State to me is one of those pivotal albums that kind of just like changed everything,
Yeah.
Hmm.
because it was Green Day had obviously broken through and Offspring had broken through, but Enema of the State is like a polished pop punk album, and it's like one of the cleanest sounding, and it's still like just it just hit so well, and
Hmm.
and it probably got a lot of people, a lot of kids to turn their head and actually go to Hot Topic and find, some of these other bands. Because I'm sure there are plenty of kids who started with Blink 182 and then got to Gorilla Biscuits. Like you said, like that
Right.
happens, right? It's all connected, and that's the fun part about it all.
Hmm.
So here's our big question for you.
Hmm.
We just found out that yeah, an underground volcano opened up under Mount Rushmore, swallowed the whole thing, burst out a
Wow.
bunch of molten lava, and it's
Hmm.
it's 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 cool enough that you can kind of mold it right now,
Hmm.
but we need to do something with that space. So if you were to reconstruct Mount Rushmore
Hmm.
with four bands or artists, who are you putting up there?
I was actually just going to ask you how many faces are on Mount Rushmore, so that I could start to conceptualize an answer for you. Jimmy Eat World, who we'll be chatting about this evening, are certainly on the Mount Rushmore. Um, AFI, is on Mount Rushmore for sure, the new Mount Rushmore. Um, One of my all-time favorites, Hot Water Music, is
Yeah.
on the Mount Rushmore for sure. Geez, number four. That's a really hard one. I'm gonna go with something that's I've got two answers in mind, but one of them is decisively more sort of like a little bit more in this world and
Yeah.
like kind of congruent with the other answers, and that's the movie Life,
Hell yeah.
from Long Island. I know you guys are Long Islanders. So yeah, I'll put them on the my other one was Not a Surf, who is like arguably like
Wow.
one of my like all time favorite bands. But I know
I
that I don't know.
I never would have had that one for you. No.
Really?
No, not a surf. Never would. No, never would have had that one. Wow, what a throwback! I love it. You know what?
What
Just
what's
be
what's
good.
what's the Not a Surf album that you love the most? 'Cause this is always interesting to me.
Yeah, so that's a really great question. And so I feel similarly about Not a Surf as I do Jimmy Eat World in a sense. Um, and insofar as they have a stretch, I mean, in my humble opinion, they've never made a bad record.
Yeah.
I mean, like um I can listen to every record they've ever put out, and it just like from front to back just blows my mind. But like the stretch of like Let Go, um, The Weight is a Gift, and Lucky
Yeah.
is like, like and I mean similarly, I Jimmy Eat World, like Bleed American Futures, Chase This Light to me are like three just like um really pretty flawless albums. To be able
Yeah.
to
It's
do that is it's superhuman.
It really is. And it's funny you say Not a Surf because I could see Jimmy Eat World and Not a Surf touring together. Like I
Oh
there's a
yeah.
connectivity there that
Yeah, yeah, totally.
is there. And it's also interesting because we'll talk a little bit about how Jimmy Eat World went from like an EP to a major label,
Mhm.
and Not a Surf, their biggest hit was on their first album. They were like on MTV constantly in the mid 90s with Popular,
Right.
and then
Right.
they like went indie and like found their sound that way. And like
Mhm.
that's why I was curious which albums you're going to say because I feel like they got better, but with less of a spotlight on them.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And again, another really interesting congruence between Jimmy Eat World and Not a Surf. And I feel like we're sort of like jumping the gun a little bit because this will all, I think, become a lot more pertinent as we go on. But like, the middle, like being the song. I mean, I'll meet people today who, will be chatting and I'll go, oh yeah, they'll ask me what I did like last weekend or whatever, and I'll go, oh yeah, we went down to Boston to see one of my favorite bands play. Um, and they'll go, oh cool, who's that? I go, oh, they're called Jimmy Eat World, and they go, oh, the middle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Those
Yeah.
guys are good. Whatever happened to those guys? And I go like, oh, they just continued to make unbelievable albums and tour
Yep.
consistently,
Yeah.
never stopped for the past, fucking 20 years. Like,
Yeah.
why is that not good enough for you? So yeah, similar to, yeah, Popular was the sort of like was kind of people, a lot of people still go, yeah, Not a Surf, Popular, cool. But like one, um it's not representative of
No,
their
No.
holistic sound
not at
at
all.
all.
Yeah.
And they got, I mean, again, in my humble opinion, they got so much better. And Jimmy Eat World and Not a Surf both inhabit this very interesting sort of like middle ground between mainstream rock and something a little bit more rooted in punk.
Mm.
Or the kind of underground. And I think that Bleed American as an album was really Jimmy Eat World's. There's songs on Bleed American that like likely would have fit okay on Clarity,
Right.
and were sort of representative of that sort of like early, new wave emo kind of like Christie Front Drive, The Promise Ring, stuff like that. And then there's stuff that is very much sort of like dipping their toes into the more sort of like big guitars, more sort of like rock centric stuff that you start to hear later on like an album like Futures, which is a lot more decisively like a rock album.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
They kind of started becoming a pop rock band more than anything else. I feel like, especially
yeah,
going from
sure.
Clarity to this, just
Yeah,
in the way they
sure.
sound.
Absolutely, but they inhabit this very strange because if they really went, and we'll get into the context of Bleed American for sure, but if they really wanted to kind of like if they decided, okay, fellas, like we want to make it, we want to blow up, what's doing that right now? Um like FM radio rock is doing that right now. Okay, well then let's make a record that sounds like fucking Matchbox 20. Like they could have done that.
That's true.
Right.
Yeah.
And
That's true.
it's clear that they made a concerted decision to not do that.
Right.
Yeah.
They also made a concerted decision not to make an album that sounded just like the rest of their contemporaries. That they were kind of like in the sort of like indie and emo scene that they were kind of a part of at the time. They decided to kind of make their whether it was um conscious on their part or not, who knows, but they decided to kind of make their own lane.
Well,
Um
well, for sure. And like a couple thoughts off that. Like if I think about 2001, I think about Take Off Your Pants and Jacket. Just the title alone is so juvenile. Where Jimmy Eat World to me came out with Bleed American, they sounded like grown-ups.
yeah,
They,
no
Right.
you know
doubt.
what I mean? Like they
No
were
doubt.
not they were taking the punk roots, but they were not going the like the Sum 41, you know, the doctor told my mother she should have had an abortion. They're not doing that, right? Um, but before we get too far down the middle, see what I
Yeah.
did there, Phil?
I like what you did there.
We would love to have a song played from one of your top four that you mentioned. You have a
Well,
lot of great choice.
five. We're
Five,
gonna add now surf in there now too. Yeah,
because
so we got five.
you got DreamWorks 2001 label, DreamWorks label mates.
Yeah.
AFI signed on after Jimmy Eat World did. You have those trusty chords that pull me through and through from Hot Water Music. What song do you want to hear from one of your bands?
One of the Mount Rushmores.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great question. So many good options.
Could
Man,
always go for a remedy.
I was thinking Remedy, only because, one of the things that I love about Bleed American is they nailed one of my favorite sort of like album craft um dynamics, which is the banger opening track.
Yep.
Yep.
I think you gotta, if you're putting a record together, I think you gotta have a banger as the first track. And there are few more viable bangers than Remedy by Hot Water Music. So yeah, let's go with that.
Bill, you did it. You got Hot Water Music on the podcast finally.
I sure did.
All right. Here is Remedy by Hot Water Music. Well, that was Hot Water Music. And we love bands with 3 words in their name. That's why we're doing Jimmy Eat World today. We're doing Bleed American. Bleed American is the 4th studio album. I always thought it was the 3rd. I guess I don't really know the first one before Static Prevails. I don't think I've ever even heard it. I think that was like their very pop punk album, I guess.
I guess.
If I remember correct. But yeah, they are an interesting story, like we mentioned earlier. They very quickly got signed to a label way before any of these other bands, because Static Prevails was like mid '90s or mid to late '90s. Because then Clarity is '99. Clarity was kind of like a masterpiece of emo at the time, so people were very interested to find out what they're going to do next. But they got dropped by Capitol after Clarity because they did not blow up with it, even though Lucky Denver Mint is in Never Been Kissed with Drew Barrymore. For those keeping track at home. And they actually recorded this on their own, I believe. That's what I've always heard, that they didn't have a label. They turned to their producer Mark Trombino, who we know has done so many albums in this scene. He's done many. He did Dude Ranch. He did Starting Line. He's just so many. He also owns a donut shop here in LA where he names all the donuts.
Donut Friend.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and yeah.
He did he did that. I think it's overlooked a lot, but it's a big one. Scream Dracula Scream by Rocket from the Crypt.
Yeah.
Which
because he was San Diego guy, right? Because he came from that scene, I think, because he did Drive Like Jehu.
That sounds
like,
right. Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah, totally. They got dropped from Capitol, and they all got like jobs. They all picked up like day jobs to fund the making of their next record, so that they could shop it to prospective interested parties, which like just the context of that alone really sort of like I don't know, it just characterizes the album in such an interesting way. It makes so many of the choices um so much more interesting. One, because like who would do that in modern day?
Yeah.
What band gets dropped from their label and goes, all right, well, I guess we're paying for this one ourselves out of pocket. Um, no way. Um,
Do you think
and
they ever considered breaking up? Do you think those conversations were had at that point?
who knows, right? I mean, you got to figure probably.
Yeah. Or they were probably
Uh,
like, listen, we haven't put Sweetness on a record yet. We got to do it. That's
right.
probably what they were.
Right.
That must have been it. Yeah, Mark Trombino, and what's interesting, or one of the interesting things is Mark Trombino told them that he'd do it for free until, do it for free with this sort of like almost like as an investment. He'd take payment when, they found a label to pay them for it. Which like another thing, like who does that, in modern day? I don't know.
I mean, but it's like it's a gamble that paid off, so well, and that's probably what makes it even a better story because it's like
Yeah.
not only did they go out and make a new album on their own dime, but they made
Mhm.
Bleed American on their own dime, and basically like if mainstream people weren't talking about the word emo before this, they certainly were now. Like this was like the flag has been planted.
Mhm.
Um, July 24th, 2001 on DreamWorks Records. At the time, DreamWorks Records was a new record label. So they were looking to make a big splash. And they were just entering this world of like punk and pop punk and whatever it becomes beyond that. Um, it's called Bleed American. It came out in July 21st, 2001, as I said. A few months later, September 11th happens.
Mhm.
And the record label and people in the stores, just everyone freaked out and said we can't have Bleed American on the cover of the album anymore. So for about 7 years after that, it was just known as Jimmy Eat World self-titled. But in 2008, they brought back Bleed American because they realized that phrase had nothing to do with what terrorist attacks were doing.
No.
Mhm.
Interesting decision, but one I guess I understand. I just like, wow, 7 years. That's a long time
Yeah.
to like.
I'm not surprised in 2001, but just because like everyone's reaction was like, I mean, we obviously the country had never been through something like that in the modern era, and I remember even the Spider-Man trailer got pulled because the Spider-Man trailer was bank robbers getting stuck in their helicopter stuck in a spider web in between the two towers, twin
Right.
towers.
Oh, no
So like,
kidding.
yeah, so everything that had any reference that reminded people of it was just everyone was taking their chance. But it didn't affect this album at all. I don't feel like anybody ever never knew it as Bleed American, even when it was called self-titled. People still referred to it as Bleed American. Um,
Yeah, totally. I think that's like a pretty deep cut, like, cultural point of reference. I think you're probably pretty in the know if you like remember that. Because I mean, I super remember that.
yeah.
Um, but I don't think most people even really consider it.
Well, the title is actually the title of the first track.
Hmm.
I love that
What
move. I love the first song being the name of the album.
Really
I don't
interesting.
know. Yeah, I'm surprised more artists don't do that.
You know what I love? I don't know I don't know if I feel any which way about the first song being the name of the album. What I do love is the name of the song isn't referenced in the lyrics of the song.
Yeah.
Mhm, mhm.
That's cool as hell.
That is awesome. Yeah. When you just drop that phrase in there and you're like, oh, that's like Taking Back Sunday would do that all the time for a while from
Yeah.
Mhm.
like tell all your friends and where you want to be. Those were lines from songs.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, let's talk about this first track. You mentioned it earlier. This
Mhm.
is this is a fierce banger to open your record with.
Unequivocal banger for sure.
I Jeff, do you remember going to see a movie together? And this song played. Do you remember this at all?
A movie that this song was in the movie.
This song was in the movie. Yeah, we went and saw Van Wilder together.
Oh my
Uh,
God.
Mhm.
And we were
Deadpool
like,
himself.
Deadpool himself. We're watching Van Wilder, and all of a sudden, this song, they're in this a hockey scene is about to start up. And we were both like, "All right, hockey scene, things are looking good." And then this song starts up. Terry like gets the puck, and like Bleed American starts playing. And first, I'm like, "Why is this song here?" It doesn't matter though because we're in a hockey scene. It's gonna go great. And we're like, cool, this is really cool. It's awesome. It's got Jimmy World. It's got Deadpool himself, Ryan Reynolds. It's got Terry, but whatever. It's got hockey. It's more important. And then at the end, do you remember what we did? We booed the screen, just the two of us in the theater. You know why? Because she referenced Terry was like, yeah, my brother plays hockey for the New York Rangers.
Rangers, yeah.
Oh
Yeah,
Bummer.
no,
and we booed booed the screen. Ah,
guys,
Yeah,
I think I need to be very forthcoming, and I also want to, just want to clear the air. I'm missing game 2 of the Rangers
I know.
first round of the playoffs right now to do this episode. So take it easy on the Rangers trash talk.
I
we
know.
won't go too far, but I will say
Mhm.
by the time this just drops, we'll have known the future. We'll know what happened in the playoffs. But
Yes.
I feel like I feel pretty confident that the Rangers are not going to have a problem in the first round with the Washington Capitals.
I hope that that's the truth. I hope that
Uh,
that's the truth.
I
And you know
know.
what? In a show of goodwill and friendship, for the both of you guys, I hope that the Islanders figure something out with
I
the fans.
sure as shit
uh,
hope they do.
not
Oh
to
my
go off
god.
a complete tangent for a hockey game that by the time people listen to this was months ago,
Months
but
Yeah.
ago.
my good friend Eric, who Phil knows, texted me last time the Islanders were up 3-0, and he
Yeah.
just said the Islanders really got to hold on and win this one. And I texted back, the worst lead in hockey is a 3-goal lead.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
Yeah.
then an hour and a half later, I said, "See,"
Mhm.
because they lost 5-3.
Oh my god, 5-3. It's terrible. That's right though. When I go back and listen to this album later once it airs, I'll be like, yeah, that was a rough night. But then they had this magical turnaround and have gone on to win every game.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
think that's gonna happen.
I think Jeff, I think I'm alone in that one. So
Yeah,
back to Bleed American.
Yeah.
This song is such a banger of an opener. It's such a banger of an opener. It comes out hard. It comes out really heavy,
Mhm.
which is an interesting take for the band because I think this album has a really great job of balancing heavy songs and lighter songs. And I think it's great to start with a really heavy, kind of grungy, kind of I don't know,
yeah,
dirty feeling kind of it's not that like it's them but not them at the same time. So I love this as an opener.
Mhm.
And I like to bring in the concept of, what is it to bleed American? It's kind of like, I don't know, I kind of care about trivial things like all my medicine and all that, but like really like we're getting this idea of what an American is, at least to them. What do you think, Jeff?
yeah. No, I agree 100%. First of all, I love the use of the word grungy because you're right. It is a grungy sounding song, which is funny because it's like Jimmy Eat World, you
It
emo pop punk world.
right.
But yeah, this one is grungy. Yeah, it's. I mean, the opening lines just kind of like give you a snapshot of what it was to be, I guess, maybe middle class American at that
Mhm.
time. And the only difference now would be instead of I'm not alone because the TV's on, yeah, you'd say I'm not alone because the TikTok's on, yeah, I'm not crazy because I take the right pills every day. People are
Mhm.
still taking the pills every day because they're not. So it really is like, yeah, this is where we are at society wise.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, that's an interesting take. I guess I never really looked at it that way. And I guess that sort of like speaks to a really interesting sort of like dynamic that a lot of these like bands had and their lyrics had was it really spoke to these sort of like bored, angry suburban teenager
Oh
Hmm.
at
yeah.
the
Hmm.
time. It was very much, and I mean it's true of all these bands really if you kind of like look at it closely. There was very much this like I am feeling this deep angst. Um, and here is somebody else who seems to be feeling similarly. and not just angst. I mean, the whole sort of like range of the human emotional spectrum. There's songs that sort of fit the bill. But yeah, that's a really interesting point, Jeff.
Uh, yeah, that idea of like that bored person in suburbia. I mean, I think this one too is it kind of goes like you're sitting there, you're on your pills, you're watching TV, you're bleeding the greed from your arm. Like there's a lot of things you can go with that. But like I think ultimately it's kind of telling people to like get up, right? And get out there.
Mhm.
It's like sign up. It's the picket line or the parade. Like which
Mm,
side are you gonna pick?
hmm.
So it really is kind of a call to arms by the time you get to the end of it.
Yep. Yeah, I've always loved the last line of the chorus, our lives, our call.
Yeah.
And like the idea like coal as this sense of fuel.
Yep.
Um, like our lives are, this thing that we use to kind of give us kind of like power and kind of motivation. I've always loved that line.
And kind of the well, I don't want to say lie America says gives, but maybe it is. Aren't the people the fuel for the America we're supposed to be at least?
Hmm.
You know.
With your
Yep.
sort of fancy pantsy scotch, because that's a space side, is the
Yeah.
sort of fancy pantsy scotch. Sort of. That's the middle class coming out right there.
Space Side.
Hmm.
I've never had Space Side.
I think I had it once, and I realized I'm not a scotch drinker.
Mm.
But that's okay.
That's okay, Phil. You're more of a salt, sweat, sugar on the asphalt kind of guy anyway.
I mean, really, if you can put that into a cocktail, I would gladly drink that. That sounds fine with the asphalt.
I know, especially the asphalt. I think we'd be asphalts if we didn't play this song. So here is Bleed American, the titular and opening track to Jimmy Eat World's 2001 album, Bleed American. All right, well, that was Bleed American. We are coming back with track two.
Hmm.
Phil, what is the name of track two?
It's a praise chorus.
Praise Chorus. Praise Jimmy Eat World for giving us Praise Chorus. That's what they say.
Honestly, that is a good thing to say because this is such a good song.
Mm.
It's funny. We go from one extreme to the next, right? You've got like a really heavy song to kind of like this, like kind of a lighter song out of nowhere. Which I just think is again, it really shows the dynamic of who Jimmy Eat World is. Like you don't really know who Jimmy Eat World is until you're like a few songs in, and even then they bust out some stuff like track like wait 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 track 8 comes out of nowhere and you're like well okay so this is different now too so like you can never really get a handle on who Jimmy World is
Mm.
but I'm
Hmm.
okay with that because I'm happy a praise chorus is here.
Totally. Yeah, what a tune. What a tune. And to something that we spoke on earlier, this sort of like I think of this song in particular as a really nice homage to or like sort of like a recognition of like where they came from in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
Especially, I mean, maybe I'm jumping the gun a little bit, but the fact that, Davey Von Bolen sings
Yeah.
the bridge,
Yeah,
um, where like, it's just so everything about it, just so good. So
No,
good.
it's an infectious song. It's I love songs like this, but I mean this is also like, are you gonna live your life standing in the back looking around, or are you gonna waste your time? Gotta
Mhm.
make your move or you'll miss out. That's
Mm.
what this song is telling people. You gotta go for it. And anytime, and I referenced again how our music with trusty chords, but like I'm on my feet, I'm on the floor, I'm good to go. Now all I need is just to hear a song I know. I want to feel like part of this was mine. I want to fall in love tonight. I mean
Mm.
that's a tattoo easily. I'm surprised I don't have it, but
I might have had an away message that said something like that. It's
oh,
funny.
definitely have the away message. Yeah.
Absolutely, I just remember when this song came out I was like who's Davey. Like, because I
Mm.
remember going through like the note, I'm like, who's this Davy guy? And it's funny, like we were talking about way leads kind of on a way. Like you find one band, you do the liner notes, thank you notes, you're like, oh, like if it wasn't for Jimmy Eat World, I'd never been like a promise ring guy. I mean, like, oh,
Mhm.
there's this band and all that. Because at this point I knew Davy, and I was "Da- like Havoc? Are we doing that? But like, no, I'm like, no, that can't, but maybe it is. I don't know. But
What
like,
a combo that would be.
oh my God, what a combo that
Mhm.
would have been. I love the bridge by Davey coming in from the Promise Ring, and because there's like it's basically the song's about a love, kind of like a love song about like songs, right? About music in general. And like he jams on Crimson and Clover, which is a song. You've got Rock and Roll Fantasy, which is another song. You've got the Kickstart My Rock and Roll Heart, which is yet another song. That's the Motley Crue there, if we want to bust out the 80s hair metal, which I know we deep down we love very much 80s hair metal. But like it's a great song about enjoying, I think, music in general. And even though they had trouble writing the bridge, I'm glad they gave it to Davey. And I love that Davey gets a shout out later on from Jim.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, this is a love of music. I mean, this is the Bouncing Souls type of song here. We're just gonna celebrate great songs and great music. And I think musically, it's so infectious. It makes you feel good. It's a
Right.
it's this is like a song you put on before you go to a show. This is a song you put on before you go out. This is that pump up song. Of like just yes, let's go out there and live our life.
Right. Yeah, and something that this is kind of the first song on the album that this really like comes up, at least for me, where when we talk about the sort of like context of this record insofar as like dropped from the album, paid for it themselves, we're really kind of rolling the dice. I mean, this album could have just as easily totally flopped, and then they would have been, doing whatever they decided to do for the rest of their kind of civilian lives. And so it's almost a surprise that they didn't decide to play it safer. That they didn't decide to make the album that either catered to their sort of like indie emo pre-established fan base, or try to, kind of get them in with the more sort of like alternative rock thing that was happening at the time. And they're fucking around and writing a bridge that's sang by like their buddy, that just references cool songs that they like.
All right.
And it wasn't like it does. I mean, it's a gorgeous bridge. It's a perfectly written song. But they were just, I mean, they were really truly just doing them. In a way that like now with, years of sort of like of hindsight and perspective, you go like it blows my mind.
Yeah, I think you said it exactly right. I think I didn't even think about that, but like, yeah, they maybe that's why it works so well. Maybe they went into it and said, you know what, we're gonna do it our way. We're gonna do exactly
Mm.
the way we want to do it, and
Mm.
that authenticity
I was just gonna
often
say, yeah, I was
will.
just gonna say, because what do we look for? What is great art? What do we look for when we look for great art? It's authenticity. Um, that's why, I mean, that's why Taylor Swift is the biggest artist on planet Earth right now.
Yeah,
Um, like it is so, even if it doesn't, even if it's not your thing musically, which fine, it is so deeply authentic,
hmm
that you
Mm-hmm.
can't help but be moved by it.
I mean, she just released the recording of this a double album of just like ripped from her diary, like responses to things, and it's so specific, and it's so she's got this image in the world that she's like super powerful. She's a billionaire. She's got this concert that's like the biggest thing that's everyone's always talking about. She took over the NFL just because she dated a football player. It's like she does all this, but then she like reveals in these songs this turmoil she's been going through,
Mm.
and she's able to do that. Yeah, the specificity gets you there.
Yeah, and again, back to this, like stuff that if you drew this up in a sort of playbook, um somebody who had a little bit more sense would go, don't do this. This,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
this is, this doesn't sound like a great idea. And yet, um, it continues to pay dividends.
Well, we'll explain also why this album probably blew up in a second, but before we get to there, let's play the praise chorus. A praise chorus. We talk about this band blowing up. Bleed American was actually the first single, right, Phil? I
It
believe.
was first
Yeah.
single. Mm-hmm.
Then they released the next single, or was Sweetness next?
No,
think
this
Sweetness is
one's
next.
No, next one. Middle is next.
Middle's next.
Middle is
Really?
Okay.
next. Middle is
Oh, middle
next.
is next. Oh, sorry,
Yeah.
I forgot that
Yeah.
It's
yeah.
the middle single. They only did 3, so
Yeah. So track 3 is the middle, and we mentioned earlier there is a song that the masses know from Jimmy Eat World.
everybody knows this song. But what's funny though, Jim, is you said like they were just doing them on a praise chorus, and like
Mhm.
this is a song that backs this up, like that whole concept of it, because the song originated from the fact that they got an email from a fan who was like, well, you're not punk enough to be a punk band, and they're like, well, fine, whatever, we'll be us, right? And
Uh,
he's kind of talking to himself the whole time, or he's talking to the bandmates, like, just hey, just be yourself, just
mm,
keep on what you're doing. I love the positivity of this song
mhm,
Mm-hmm.
because it's not like a fake positivity. Like this is all about like acknowledging who you are, the positive side of who you are, and embracing that and moving forward with that. Like don't write yourself off yet. You're in the middle. Like you're not
mm,
done. The story's not over for you. I think that's an
mm,
amazing positive thing to say. And I think we'll always say that about Jamie World, at least with this album. There's a couple other albums that go a little darker here or there, but I feel like there is a inherent positivity on the album that at the time in the scene we didn't see a lot of positivity in a lot of the other bands, the other albums that were out there. This is I just feel like a positive band singing a positive song.
I don't know. Maybe there's
mm.
just something in the water in Mesa, Arizona that just made such positive young gentlemen who wanted to make this because we hadn't mentioned where they're from. But you're right though, and I mean this goes back to me again how I thought about them as adults.
Yeah.
It's like they're not caught up in a lot of the angst that so many of their peers are. They're out here giving advice to people who are having a hard time and reminding them that everything's going to be all right.
Mm.
You're just in
Yeah,
the middle of the ride. It's just the middle of the ride.
yeah, for sure. And I've heard or I read something that an interview with Jim Adkins, a while back. But he talks about the fact that like they recognized that um they needed a more sort of like cookie cutter kind of single for the album.
Mhm.
For it to be like sort of like commercially viable to a prospective label, like they recognized that it had to be there. Um, and so they decided to they decided to try to write the most sort of like accessible, straightforward song that they possibly could without like subverting their sort of like ethics and like, the sort of like substance of the music and without it coming off as sort of like insulting from like a you know like not it just not being just so dumb that it was kind of an insult to their fans that like and this is what they came up with. He said that they wrote it in like I think he said something crazy like 15 minutes or something like that.
Amazing.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. It's
Yeah.
like when Blink got challenged to like, well, we don't hear a single, right? On
Mm.
was it Take Your Pants Off and Jacket? And they
Yeah.
were all like, well, hold on, buddy. And they each went to go write a banger of it was a rock song
And
and First
first
Date.
date.
And First Date, yeah, okay. And it's like,
So you hear chips, yeah.
yeah, I'm like, I can it's a single. Like it's a single. It's a total pop song. It's bonkersly good. I love every second of it. I love all the breaks it does. Like it's got that millennial break in it where it takes one. Like I love all that. It's I don't care. I don't care. It's a great song. I don't care.
Yeah, I always drew a parallel to this song with Jimmy Eat World to say like something the Cure would do with like Just Like Heaven or
Hmm.
It's Friday and I'm in Love. Like you know what I mean? Like just like hold my beer, here's a perfect pop song.
Right. Well, this is why I mean with this album, like you haven't figured out who Jimmy World is yet because you have this like grungy song, this kind of a light, song about loving like basically pop tunes, and then you get into this one like I'm gonna write a banger of pop tune. Here you go. Just in case you didn't figure it out what we are just yet. Stick around because I'm gonna write a pop tune.
Mm.
Well, Phil, do you want to play the
Yep.
middle?
It's foolish to not play the mill. Yes, sir.
All right, here is the middle. Phil,
Yes.
You know what you always do to me?
I, well, still gotta find out where this is gonna go. What do I always do, Jeff?
You rip my heart right out.
I'm sorry about that. It just looks better on the floor. I don't know. That's just where it looks.
The next song, track 4, is Your House.
Yeah, we're gonna really change up gears
Again. Yep.
again on this album, and and just when you're it's funny for a song that's about breakups. It's a very fun sounding song, kind of upbeat, got acoustic side to it. I feel we're a bit early in the album to slow it down.
You know, it's slowed down, but like you said, it has this kind of like even when he's singing, you rip my heart right out, you rip my heart
Yeah,
right.
it's
Like there's
like
this
it's
like
kind of
there's like a joy to it. But then I love you get into the chorus and it feels very emotional at that
yeah,
point. Like
yeah.
that's where he's getting very vulnerable. Even in his voice, you hear it there.
And he goes back and forth a couple times. I feel like he goes back and forth a couple times. He's like, if you still care at all, don't tell me. Don't go. Tell me now. So if you still care at all, don't go. Tell me. But then later on, he's like, no, no, don't tell me. Like I don't want to
Mhm.
know. Don't like. It's this weird dichotomous moment in the relationship where I'm not sure he knows what he wants.
Yeah.
What do you think, James? Does he know what he wants? Protagonist? No, we won't say Jim. We'll just say protagonist.
Certainly doesn't sound like it. Um, yeah, and I always wonder, like I have this I listened to this album earlier today to just kind of like re kind of acquaint myself. Um, and so many of the lyrics on this album, especially on songs like this, the ones that are a little bit more the rockers are the rockers,
Hmm.
but the kind of like slower and more emotional songs, the lyrical content feels like deeply personal. Um, and so I always wonder, like, what is he referring to? I want to know the story behind the lyrics. But yeah, no, that sort of like um that sort of yeah, if you still care at all, don't go tell me now. If you love me at all, don't call.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah,
like,
just
what do you mean? What do you mean? Like,
let's bro, what do you want? What do you want out of this relationship? I
yeah.
don't think you know, man. I think it's time to go work on you. This
Well,
is a new side quest.
yeah, I mean, he's in pain over the loss of this person. I mean, to me, the bridge is everything in this song. Like,
Yeah.
will I throw away everything I've written you? Oh, anything, just keep my mind off of thinking how I had you once. Oh, I can't
Mm,
forget that. Sometimes I wish I could lose you again. Like,
mm,
this is like the Eternal Sunshine moment where he's like, I know this is gonna be terrible, but I want to do it again. It's gonna end bad, but I
It's
want
good.
to go on the ride again.
Yeah. No, I'm not going to your house anymore. No, I'm sorry. I don't want to go there. Maybe I'll just
mm.
park outside and creepily look at it. That took a turn, didn't it?
I mean, there are plenty of emo bands who would write a song like that. So.
That's 100% true. 100% true.
Well, that is track 4. Track 5 is very interesting because this is a song they had been playing live, but hadn't shown up on anything.
Mm-mm. Hmm.
And good God, to have this song not recorded and just a fan favorite live song, I love that. Like that, I feel like bands don't get to do that very often anymore. I feel like you have to like put everything out there. But this idea of this for a while, there was just this extra song that they would play live, and one of the most fun songs to sing along to on the whole album, or in the history of music, really. I'm talking about Sweetness.
It's a sweet, sweet song. Did you know? I didn't know this. I only learned this. Did you know that the woes were placeholders for future lyrics that they never could figure out?
That's
Mm.
wild.
That's interesting.
It's
I'm glad
and
they never
so
figured it out.
it is the hook of the song to figure
Yeah.
out that like that I don't like if you didn't have those woes in there, like the song doesn't make it is not nearly as good. But this is like the call and answer sing along song that is just amazing to hear. And I'm glad they actually put it onto an album.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, best chorus on the record as far as I'm concerned. Just
100%.
good, such a good chorus. And I remember seeing the video for this record, and like you can't obviously like the video for the middle is burned into my brain forever. But like I remember seeing this video, and it was it was each of the members in like different rooms of a house,
Mm-hmm.
if I remember correctly, and they're like playing their instruments. And at that time, um, it was before, before the internet like really took over and the currency of like access became so um deeply devalued that like now it doesn't even like, I mean, who cares? But like to be able to see a music video and to see like the dudes in your favorite band like moving and like living, and you can like see them, see their faces. I was obsessed with that video. I would watch it over and over and over again just to like, what does this dude who sings in my favorite band look like? I want to, I want every minute of it. So yeah, it was a great video for this song. And to reintegrate hockey into the conversation, this was the goal song for the Florida Panthers um
Yeah.
uh for a long time. I don't think it still is.
It's such a great goal song. Like what a fun like. I wish. I don't think I've ever liked an Islander goal song, so
No,
I
it'd
can
be
never do it.
fantastic. No, it'd be great if they could bring this in. I appreciate that.
Um, you also mentioned the look of this band, which we maybe we can touch on because again,
Yeah.
because they are 2001 and like they look just like regular people, in
Right.
in a scene where the Flatirons are coming out now, and we're getting close to some eyeliner. We're getting close to that, right? But
Mm,
Jimmy Eat World has always just kind of been like, again, big adults. They just come out, jeans, t-shirt, that's it. There's nothing else. They are very much like what you see is what you get, but then we're going to blow you away with these incredible songs.
mm. Yeah, for sure. And I feel like that was an ethic that came from, the kind of like emo scene, um, that they kind of came from. Because you look at photos of like the Promise Ring and you're like, these are just like skinny teenagers, like there's
Yeah.
nothing really, which I like, the fact that there was nothing necessarily visually about them that was like striking to the point where you're like, ooh, I want to know more about this. I mean, like, I remember seeing photos of AFI for the first time and being like, I don't know what the hell's going on here, but I'm into it. Like, I want to know more. And like, yeah, you don't really get that same um that same feeling from Jimmy Eat World, and it also almost makes it cooler in a sense.
Definitely. Yeah, you just said something which reminded me of a memory. The first time I saw the band Jimmy Eat World and the band AFI was at the 2001 Warped Tour, and they played early and back to back.
Wow.
So I saw Jimmy Eat World. I'm pretty sure they finished the set with this song. They always close with this at that point.
Yep.
So I literally went from hearing the Sweetness live for the first time, losing my mind, to be like,
Yeah.
I finally get to see AFI. And for whatever reason, I listened to AFI, but I never really like paid attention to what they look like. And I had that reaction too, where like Davey came out, and I'm like, oh man, this guy looks like the Crow. What's going on here? There's some goth action happening here. I mean, and then blown away just by their live performance. But yeah, I always thought it was funny that after that they ended up signing on DreamWorks because yeah, two very different looks for bands,
Mm.
but similar in that they were around for a while. They built up these
Yeah.
these followings and
Sure.
then blew up on DreamWorks.
Sure. Yeah,
Die
totally.
diehard followings. I also want to celebrate the fact that how good Jim sings on this song.
Mm.
And like I feel like he really shines vocally on this. Because I know at this point, with Static Prevails, they were kind of like co-singers, him and
Tom, yeah,
Tom, right? And then in Clarity, it's almost all Jim on that
yeah,
one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then this one, I think it's all Jim,
yeah.
Yeah.
except for
We
the
never
one
get
part.
we don't really get Tom again like it
No,
was
like,
back in the old days.
Yeah.
but
And
I feel,
you're right, Phil. He kind of like comes into his own on
yeah,
this on
right.
this album. And something that is like such an important part of like what makes Jimmy Eat World, at least for me, is Jim Adkins like tude. There is
Mhm.
a very specific tude happening, and I am a strong supporter of the tude. There's kind of a sass
Mm-hmm.
really becomes sort of like characteristic of his sort of vocal style, which again, going back to the sort of like the context of the album, like you're gonna sing. Yeah, it's gonna be kind of sassy and sometimes aggressive and sometimes like probably not the play, buddy, but he did it, and it's incredible.
No, it is. I mean, and also this song, I just think, the secret sauce is the woes and the also just the line, "Are you listening?" Like the fact they keep repeating that, "Are you listening? Are you listening?" And it's like, yes, of course I am. I never not, I'm always listening. It's just that it's a crucial question to sing to these crowds, because they are very passionate. Phil, you
Yeah.
never put any sweetness in your coffee, I noticed.
No. No.
Well, save it from your coffee. We're gonna play it now instead. I don't know if that transition worked, but here we go.
I don't want to get sad. All right, go ahead.
Well, Phil,
Sorry.
it's time to get sad.
Yeah, I know. I don't want to get sad, but let's get sad. Here we go.
This is track six. Track six, right? Yeah.
Track 6. Hear
We
You
are
Me.
about, you said we were slowing it down. Now we're really slowing it down. We're slowing it down. We're getting twinkly. We're getting beautiful. We're getting sad. Here is Hear You Me.
This is a sad song. So this is written for two fans, Weezer fans specifically, who died in a car accident. Michael and Carly Allen is who this was written for. This is a very sad, like sad song. But like an okay sad song. Like I feel like I know we joked around, Jeff, on our first album of this season where we talked about how Bounce Souls was like the big brothers of everybody.
Mhm.
And I feel like Jimmy World really, for whatever reason, they have this adultish um meant feel to them. And I feel like when they're singing this song and you're like, you know what? It's gonna be okay. I just there's like a compassion. That's a good word for it. I think there's a compassion the band has that you can hear in the way Jim sings. And again, James, really great call. I feel like Jim really comes into his own on this album as a singer.
Mm.
And I feel these last two songs, he really shines what he can do with the musical instrument that is his voice. If that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, sad tune, gorgeous tune. Little long, if I'm being honest. It's a little bit too long for my taste.
It's like a 5-minute song, right? And I don't, yeah, I'm
Yeah,
not a,
if they had
yeah.
like if they had just sort of like nipped it just a little bit, I think it would have been a lot more I don't know, a little bit more concise. But still, yeah, gorgeous, gorgeous song.
You had mentioned earlier, like there's some songs that could be on Clarity. This one could be on Clarity. This
Mm.
has
Yes.
this has the DNA of a Clarity song for sure. Like I could see that. But yeah, I think it's just such a beautiful song. Like, what would you think of me now? So lucky, so strong, so proud. I never said thank you for that. Now I'll never have a chance. Like this really, it's heart wrenching because you're going from like this feeling of like you're gone. I never have to say thank you to a prayer of may angels lead you in. Hear you,
Mm.
me, my friends on sleepless roads, the sleepless go. I mean, I hear that and I get chills. I just reading it out loud. And but
That's so
on
good.
Yeah, but Jim's performance on this, like, it's just his voice. I think Phil, you're right. It's sad, but it's also comforting.
Yeah, like he does like it's on the nose. The lyrics are right. It's right there. I love the little I'm not a religious person at all, but I love the metaphor he's creating at the end. Like I'm like, you know what, for these like super fans or for people who seem to deserve it, yeah, I kind of wish the same. I don't like I said, I'm not a religious guy, but I'm wishing the same for these folks. And it is this like this comfort in if you were here with me, if you were with me tonight, I'd sing to you just one more time a song for a heart so big I wouldn't let it live. I mean, it's a beautiful little song. It really is. The melody is really beautiful. The theme itself is just wonderful to hear. And enjoy. It's just funny to call them number track 6 on the album. Like we're gonna slow everything way down right here, and
Well,
kind of keep that going for the next one too. A
well,
little bit.
this is the end of side A, right? You
Yeah,
go from Bleed American to this. That's quite a journey, just on that first half.
yeah.
Uh, Um, you know what I want to hear?
Is it Hear You Me?
It sure is. Here is Hear You Me. We're back.
Scoop.
People got tissues to clean those too. I mean, I saw Jimmy Eat World not too long ago. They opened for Fall Out Boy, and I went to go see a show with them. And I hadn't seen them in a few years. And
Mm,
getting older now, and like I don't know, this song hit me so hard when they played it live. I was like,
Mm.
oh, my eyes are a little sweaty today. Oh no,
mm.
you know.
I hate sweaty eyes. That's the thing. Yeah, I'm not a fan. Not a
That's
fan.
a Flight of the Concords reference. Ugh.
Um, it took me a second to get there. No, yeah, no. All right,
My
all right.
eyes are just a little sweaty today.
A
I'm
little
not
sweaty today.
crying. I'm not crying. Yeah. Well, if you don't, Phil. That's the next track.
That's fine with me. Yeah, talk about sweaty eyes. We're gonna keep going with some lost love. If you don't. What a great title. Great title.
Mm.
I love this song. This to me, uh, thinking about where they go on futures, like this is pointing that direction.
Mm-hmm.
That's a really good point. I didn't think about that. That's a really good point. It doesn't, again, like we get so far into this. This is track 7, and I feel like you still don't know who this band is, and that's okay. Like I feel like it's okay. That at this point you're like, all right, we're gonna try something different. We're gonna bring in some like a total different sound to any of the songs. The lyrics we're still staying true with that, but it definitely it's different. It's very different. Um, I like the specificity. I can never get that word right. I should just give up on that word. I like the specifics of it because we're talking about the 405. So are we? I'm thinking we're in LA with the 405. Jeff, is that we keeping that going, or is that talking about just the five?
Well,
What's
the
that one?
five and the 405 are both
Oh,
miserable,
they're
so
both
they're
miserable. All right,
different
great.
sides of the city. But don't worry.
Mm.
And
Yeah,
then ninth and Ash.
Yeah.
Ninth and Ash, which is a cross street in Tempe, where on the corner there's this restaurant called Casey Moore's. Casey Moore's, man, they're like it's Casey Moore's something something. And it's this like little bar restaurant in Tempe. And so like I'm assuming was like a was like a hangout, of theirs. Um,
The Oyster House.
yeah, Casey Moore's Oyster House.
Oh my gosh, let's go hang out in an Oyster House. I don't know if that's a thing I would do. That's very singular, I think, to Jimmy World. I'm not gonna hang out like dollar oysters. I don't know. That doesn't sound.
Yeah, you never know.
I don't know, Phil. You just don't like a deal. It sounds like.
I I no, truthfully, I don't like oysters. I think I've had them
Yeah.
once, and I was just like, I'm all set with this. Thanks so much. This is a thing. I don't
Are
get it.
those the ones that you eat raw?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you just pop it open and just down it goes. That's not for me.
Yeah, I think I'm probably all set there too. But yeah, so I've always loved. Um, I was in Tempe a number of years ago, visiting a friend, and made a pilgrimage to Ninth and Ash.
That's awesome.
Mm. But yeah, no, I love this song. And yeah, dude, it picks up like, it picks up, especially coming out of
Hmm.
Hear You Me. Um, and yeah, totally like gives off a little bit of a Futures vibe. Um, in the sort of like maturity of it.
I mean, I could hear this right next to like Work and Kill. I mean, it has that just I think it's in his voice too. Talking about him coming to his own. When he says we once walked along the beach and I almost touched your hand, like the desperation and
Hmm.
vulnerability in his voice, and he can change it. He can crack into that so well that you just
Mm,
like it's. I mean, it's like it kind of sends shivers down my spine when I hear it. Like, not in a scary way, but like just in a like whoa
yeah,
feeling.
yeah, because it gives you that sort of like insider look. Um, and yeah, this is another one of those songs where I just want to sit them down and just go like, tell me absolutely everything that this song is about in like deep specificity. If I ever met Jim Adkins, it would be a lot like that Chris Farley sketch, Chris Farley show. Were you guys ever SNL guys?
Oh yeah.
Where he like interviews like famous people and just asks them the dumbest questions? That would be me speaking to Jim Adkins.
It,
Maybe
it's like a we.
someday we'll be smarter. And I'm sorry for that. I'm such a mess. I drank all the money you could get took everything you let me have, and then I never loved you back. This is regret, right? Like never really
It's
going
regret.
for it. Yeah. It sounds like someone who they never made it happen. And regrets. Regret's a hell of a thing, Phil.
It sounds like the continuation from Your House. Like
Yeah.
I feel like that story is still kind of going, and maybe he's now realized he's like, I should have done something more, maybe.
Sometimes you have those nights when you look back and then what if? What if? Like
Maybe.
what if we don't play this? No, not a chance. Here is if you don't. All right, next track is Get It Faster. Phil, does Jimmy Eat World change its sound again on this one?
They sure did. They sure did change their sound. They went for and I am not lying when I say this. The opening of this song, about the minute of the song, the random drum beat. Do you know how they created that?
Always sounded like a clock to me. So I
It's not. Wow, that's really cool. No, that's good, but no, it's actually it's good, but that's wrong.
oh,
Uh,
okay.
it's actually they programmed it off MTV's music generator game from PlayStation.
What?
No.
Yeah, I'm not kidding you. That is not even a lie. That is the absolute truth. That whole little opening sequence for 1 minute is all from a video game.
That's fantastic. This is one of those songs. I mean, you talk about Jeff, you mentioned like, do they change their sound again? And you talk about we referenced their next record, Futures, a little bit earlier. I mean, this is one of those songs where you're like, oh, okay. So when I think about that sort of like Clarity, Bleed American, Futures,
Mm.
kind of like boom, boom, boom. This, like Clarity's sort of like, the nascent, kind of like early beginnings of, okay, Jim's the guy. And this is kind of the direction that we're headed in. Jimmy World, pardon me, Bleed American is them going like, okay, like, we're really good at this. Um, and then Futures is like, we've arrived.
Yeah.
We kind of like, and if I'm being honest, I think Futures is a better record than Bleed American. Um, but like, this is such an important, Futures is where they really kind of realize themselves, I think, in a fully developed way, which is sort of the springboard for the rest of their career. But this song in particular, with the big guitars, with the kind of like a more sort of like darker and aggressive sound, it's kind of the sort of like prequel to a song off Futures like Nothing Wrong.
Yeah.
Where it's like it's sort of indicative of that sort of like moodier, darker, more sort of like big guitar rock centric stuff that is going to characterize, when they really kind of like emerge from the chrysalis as the sort of like beautiful butterfly that is Jimmy Eat World.
Yeah. No, I think you captured their journey, that evolution so well, what you just said, because like I think all three of those albums probably have. I bet if you ask any Jimmy Eat World fan, you're gonna get either Clarity, Bleed American, or Futures as your favorite album.
Hmm.
And because like, I'm a Futures person. Not that I don't love this album or I don't love Clarity. It's just like Futures. I think agree with it. I'm like, oh, this is where you were headed all along. You were going here. Um, but that's for the future. Here, Get It Faster is I don't know. It's got such a menacing sound to it the whole way
That's a great
through.
word. That's a great word. There is like a menace to it. There's like a macabre kind of sounds to it. Where it's all right. I'll make a little light of it right now because it reminds me a lot of The Wedding Singer. Do you remember when who was it?
Love Stinks.
Yeah, well, no, no. Okay, close.
No.
Where Adam Sandler does he's like
Have you written
quiet.
anything lately? And then he plays the
Yes,
saxophone.
right. He plays a
Yeah.
song and he's like, do you know? And it's something like that. And it makes me think of this song in particular because like the little funny part where it's everything's all fine in the beginning, it's all nice and palm muted, and then it gets real loud, real
Yeah.
quick, and kind of scary sound. Always makes me think of it. It's hilarious and a great song. Freaking love this song. So
Mm.
good. Also makes me think of Military Gun right now because of the get it faster part.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
yeah, yeah. So
So what do you think this song's about?
Oh, I have no idea. I have no idea what this song's about. It's just, I think, James, you kind of hit in your head. A couple of these songs are very like, let's get back into the oven a little bit and like cook a little more to see what the thematically it's about. I think it's mostly about a vibe with
It
this
is.
one.
Yeah, because it could be anything. Like, what are you getting out
It-
of? Like, I
right.
don't, cheating gets it faster. Like, I'm not going to play by these rules anymore. Whatever it is, but
Mhm.
you get that feeling of it. You know, also, James, going back to what you said about, earlier, how they took all these chances on this album. You're looking at an album where, like, not only are they doing it on their own, there's no way to, like, you give this to a record company, they could be like, these songs are so all over the place,
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah.
but they
Like
work so well together on this album. But it's definitely like, is this them showcasing all the things they can do?
Mm-hmm.
like on paper, this album shouldn't work. It really
Right.
Sure.
shouldn't. Right? It's all over the place. Like really, it's all over the place. The only real consistent is Jim, the way he sings,
Mm.
and I just can't even imagine trying to sell this album to a record company. Be like, this is what the band is. Take all 11 songs. This is who we are, guys. And
Mm.
it must have been one guy at DreamWorks was like, mm, yeah, I can see it. I can see it here.
Steven Spielberg.
There you go. He saw it. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Phil,
Yeah.
I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna just play it. Let's do it. Get it faster. Here we go. Phil, what is the next track on this album?
The next song is called Cautioners.
Uh,
You want to talk about a clarity song that has appeared on this album. I always felt like this was a clarity song. 100%.
I forgot about this song. Like, when I went back to, like, re listen to the album, I was like kind of looking like cautioners. I can't even come up in my head with that sound, like, and then it started playing. I'm like, oh my God, I love this song so much.
Like,
How did I forget you?
how do you forget a song? It's just it's a fun again. I just don't know where these guys do it, where they just like pull out these songs out of nowhere, and you're like, oh, I'm like, well, we're at 9 now, track 9. Nope, gonna change it up again, try something different. You guys
Mm-hmm.
don't know what's coming. What
Yep.
do you what do you think, James?
I love this song. And so I don't, again, like there, I don't want to jump the gun too much because I know that we're going to talk about it, but like when I think of like Phil, you touched on like such a I think such like an interesting and important point insofar as like like this record, the first few songs make a lot of sense,
Yeah.
Bleed American, the banger, Praise Chorus, kind of another, banger adjacent type track. The middle, the single, like that's kind of where, during this era, um, that's kind of where labels wanted the lead single to go.
Mhm.
Track 3. Um, from there it really kind of falls apart in a not I mean the songs are great, but just the organization of the record
Yeah,
really kind of falls apart from there as far as like a continuity um as far as continuity goes. And so a song like um this is the last song on the record. Like um this should have been the closing track. And they, when we talk about Futures as the sort of like fully realized Jimmy World, so they nailed the banger opening track. They really kind of dropped the ball with the closing track on this one,
yeah,
My Sundown, which we'll get to. But then they come out with Futures. They've got a great opening track. And then they hit you with 23 as the closer. In my humble opinion, the best close. Like, I can't pick a more perfect closing track for an album than 23. So like it really truly is that like we nailed it. Like, um, they understood the assignment and and crushed it. So I do love this song, Cautioners. I do wish it was the last track on the album. Um, but yeah, it's great.
well, in this audio medium, if you're not watching YouTube, when you said that this should have been the last song, I was like, yes, 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 pointing at you, because 100%.
Yeah.
This is really the spiritual end of this album.
Hmm.
um and it's, again, it's funny because it's so different than Hear You Me or If You Don't, but it fits into that kind of like very emotional and very beautiful.
Hmm.
Um, because like when he breaks into that chorus, and you'll change your mind come Monday again, and he slows it down like you'll take your steps away with hesitant, you'll take your steps away from me. It's heartbreaking, and that is coming out of the performance of his voice even more than the lyrics.
Mm.
I also the opening of this like the da da da
Mm.
like
Hmm.
a very different again, like a very different kind of opening. I think that's something I would probably go back one day and listen to, like how every song opens on this album is completely different. There's
Hmm.
no like, a lot of these albums you'll get into like especially the B side, and there'll just be a couple songs that all sound the same, like a
Mm.
few in a row because they throw them
Right.
on there.
Yep.
But they were cautioned against that, as cautioners as they
Mm.
are.
Mm. Yeah, the intro is distinct. It's a great intro. That very sort of like staccato guitar. There's like a little bit
Yeah,
of an octave thing happening. Um, yeah, yeah, it's such a great tune. The chorus is good.
it's
Um,
simple too, and I think that's
it,
the other.
it's
They really
simple
nailed
and
that. Yeah,
short. Yeah, and it's not like it, it's a really sort of like it's sort of a sleeper of a chorus. It not in like it's boring, but they don't hit you over the head with it like they do on some of the other songs where like the chorus is like, oh, okay, like this is, clearly the big chorus of the song. Um, it's just a lot more understated. And again, I think speaks to the sort of like or highlights just the comfortable confidence. I think that really sort of like came to characterize Jimmy Eat World. And we talked about it earlier with the sort of like authenticity. They're just doing them.
yeah.
And they don't really have any sort of they don't seem to have any sort of like misgivings or ambivalence to that end. They're just, yeah, they're just really comfortable. And I think this song's a great portrayal of that.
No, I think you're right. And I think as a band too, when I think about having listened to them for over 20 years, uh, they're a band that you never really feel like they have band drama. I'm sure every band has something, but
Mm.
they always felt like they had no ego.
Dude,
They always,
I was thinking about that earlier today. Like, show me a band who's been around for 30 years who they just seem like pals. There's never been any like public, like discord or drama or controversy. Yeah.
yeah, it's nice. It's nice to have a band like that sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, they seem so wholesome. And I love that.
Bill,
Oh, you back? And now we can't hear you.
while he figures that out and he can't stop me, here's Cautioners. We're playing it. Phil, would you
Yeah.
say you're an authority on penultimate songs?
Oh, an authority. I don't know if I would say I'm an authority on that, but I would say I'm probably damn close.
Well, this penultimate song is called Authority Song.
Which is a reference to John Cougar Mellencamp. Let's
Is
talk
it?
about that. Yeah, it
Oh,
is. The John Cougar Mellencamp, the Authority song. That's John Cougar Mellencamp, which I always thought was just a really poor version of "I Fought the Law."
Mm.
well,
He said because John Cougar Mellencamp says, "I fight when I fight authority, authority always wins." And I was like, "Isn't this just I fought the law and the law won?" Just saying.
uh, is Cougar his real middle name?
No, have you not heard the sort of like folklore of that whole thing?
I haven't, and I'm hoping you're
No.
about to tell me.
Tell me more. Tell me more.
Okay, so I can't substantiate this necessarily, but this is how it's been told to me. And I just love the story. So if it's false, I'm gonna totally just perpetuate that falsehood. But apparently his label, so he went by John Mellencamp. Um, And apparently his label was like, hey, John Mellencamp, the name just really doesn't do it. Like there's got to be something memorable about it. Nobody hears the name John Mellencamp and goes, and it doesn't stick. And he was like, well, I don't really give a shit. It's my name. Like, I'm not gonna do something corny just for the sake of whatever. And so when they released his first album, the label added the Cougar without his permission, without really giving him any sort of heads up. Um, and then it stuck with him for the rest of his career.
He got that box of records. He's like, finally, my album. And he's like, who's John Cougar Mellencamp?
Totally. And I love that some like label, like A&R guy or like exec was like, how do we zhuzh this up in a meaningful way? What do we got? What do we got? Oh, I know. Like Cougar. Like that
Cougars are cool. Yeah.
sounds cool as hell. So yeah, John Cougar Mellencamp.
Well, I'm excited because I never really realized that Authority song was a John Cougar song, John
Mm.
Cougar Mellencamp song. I will say, based on executives in some place, I worked at Sports Authority in the early 2000s very briefly, and
Yeah.
this was on the in-store playlist, which I imagine is because someone in Sports Authority, headquarters was like, "Hey, Authority song, we're a Sports Authority." Anyway,
No way. Yeah, I'm sure you're right. So funny.
Made sense to some executive at some point. Was like, yeah, that's a great idea. Let's do that.
and
That's
then
a
that
great
executive
idea.
turned to everybody and said, "I don't seem obvious, do I?" With my Authority song for Sports Authority.
No. Good.
I do love this song. Again, we talked about it earlier. I wish it was before Cautioners though.
Yep.
This could have been the last like dancey ditty. You know what I mean? You
Yeah.
could have done it that way.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
Which it is, I guess technically because it is the penultimate song. But I'm just saying if it was the penultimate too.
If they went Authority song, Cautioners, call
Yeah.
it. Totally. Totally.
So gone for a 10-song album or like move Sundown.
I love a 10-song LP.
I'm all about in and
Love
out.
it.
Right, be done with
Yeah.
it. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
There are some great 12-song LPs. 40-Hour Train Back to Penn is a 12-song LP.
That's
Yeah.
great song.
And like you like is Ship to Shore last
Yep.
song?
That's the last one. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's that's a great ender too.
Yeah. Again, you can't do it much better. Yeah. So, but yeah, this one it could have been 10. And this would have been a great right before Cautioners. But yeah, dude, I love the not specifically because it's John Cougar Mellencamp, but I love that. Like put my last quarter on, I play Authority song. Later on in the song they go, the jukebox never has it, JMC Automatic, referencing an album the album Automatic by Jesus and Mary Chain. And like, dude, this just goes back to like they're just like it's just so organic, it's so authentic. They're really just kind of fucking around. Um, the lyrics like don't it's not the like right they're not the right lyrics if you want to be like super like serious, but it just comes across so organically. This reminds me of like this lyric, at least from like a lyric writing perspective, there's just such a, I mean, pardon the, whatever authority. There's such like an authentic authority to like, we know what we're doing and we're really good at this. And it reminds me of like, I don't know if you guys ever watched growing up, the 1950s Zorro show, the like black and white Zorro show. I think they like ran it on like Disney Channel in like the 90s. And so you got Zorro and like his move is like he takes his sword and he goes real quick and and then all of a sudden somebody realizes they've got a Z cut in like the shirt of their in their shirt, and it's kind of him going like, hey, don't fuck around, like I know what I'm doing, I'm so good at this that like I just gave you this Z, you never saw it coming. The lyrics of this song for me are like them going like, we can do whatever the hell we want because we're
Well, I
good.
think I think you're 100% right. And like they can drop all these references, and who's Roy? If those were Roy's headphones, you bet he played What Goes On. But then again, I love bridges in general because it's always like the emotional truth of the song, whatever.
Yep.
But like again, it's like they get so honest with it. So oh well, I'm here. That means something, doesn't it? Oh, won't you dance with me a little bit? And the way he delivers that, like, oh, you don't notice because the music's too loud. Like I get the whole story all of a sudden. Like it's not working.
No, there's the finality of the other two songs with Your House and If You Don't. And I think that's we're finishing off the story there.
Well, Phil, we're not finished yet because there's one more song in this album.
One more song to go.
The final track, My
What's on
Sundown.
My Sundown? Not sunrise, sundown. I'm going to end the album with the sundown. We're going. The day's over. How do we feel about this as the final song, James? How are we feeling about it?
I don't like it. I don't like it. And it hurts to say. Because I love this album so much.
What about it do you not like? I'm curious.
It just doesn't land with me at all.
Mm.
Like if what is the inherent value of art? Its ability to move you in some way. But and so this song just does not speak to me in any way. So yeah, unfortunately, I hate to say it, but I got nothing, nothing to say about this song.
I kind of feel the same way.
Mm.
It's a letdown, not a sundown, right?
Well
No,
done.
because Hear You Me is so pretty.
Yep.
It's heavy and it's deep. And this one just kind of feels like I see what it's trying to do. Like I said my goodbyes, this is my son. Like there's parts I like about it.
Yeah.
Sorry for singing.
It's okay.
But yeah, it just kind of like it's a forgettable ending,
Mm,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
I think for the most part, the song's really just about. It's the end of the album. Yeah, we've gone through all that is to be American. If you're gonna go with the title, cover, and everything, but like, it's. I think it's song about ultimately about growing up for them, particularly the band, and that they're saying goodbye. It's a question to whom they're saying goodbye,
mm,
because it could be like they're saying goodbye to like some people they're going to leave behind because they're growing up a little bit, or it's maybe goodbye to what they wanted to do originally. Who knows? I mean, but it definitely seems like it's a transitional song
mm.
that other songs are better, and I will say that. But yeah, it's a ballad at the end, kind of a quiet respite to leave the album as I'm being attacked by my blanket.
Well, your blanket aside, Phil.
Aside, yeah.
Um, yeah, that's the album. That is
That,
that is 2001's Bleed American. Um, you know, I love throwing this one on because again, it's one of those albums I throw on and I'm like, oh, it still sounds fresh. Sounds like it
Mm,
still could have been made like a year ago, and the fact that they did this on their own without a label and had such a polished, really intricate, beautiful pop rock album is incredible. And that's why they're Jimmy Eat
mm.
World. Phil,
Absolutely.
you look like you have some questions, Phil.
I do. I'm contemplatively working, looking at my questions here. And Jeff, um, like always, I am filled with questions. Jeff, what do you think is the best song on the album?
Tricky question, tricky
Yeah,
question.
it's a very tricky question.
Um, I've been dreading this question and going back and forth between finally two songs, but today I'm going to say Praise Chorus.
Praise
Ooh, good
chorus.
call.
Good choice. Good choice. Good choice. James, what about you, sir? What do you think is the best song on the album?
Yeah, great question. Man, Praise Chorus is so good, and I think that might have been my answer, but I don't want to be redundant. So oof, I'm torn between Bleed American and Sweetness, but I think I'm going to give it to Bleed American for the pure banger
Well,
factor.
what's funny, James, is I was on the fence between Bleed American and Sweetness, and you went with Bleed American. So you know what? I'll go with Sweetness. That way we get them
Perfect.
all
We covered
covered.
all our bases.
We covered all the bases because
I
it's a bang.
yeah.
It's an amazing song. An amazing song. Those
No,
three
and
songs.
my waffling back and forth was Praise Chorus and Sweetness. So
It's
with Bleed
aren't.
American really close behind. So no, I
Yeah,
mean side A of this album is like
lights out.
yeah.
Yeah, lights
Yeah,
out.
it's you can't quit on this whole first side. All right, so Jeff, let's go the other end of the spectrum. And what is the song you were going to skip?
Well, My Sundown is my least favorite song, but I have to be honest. At this point in my life, I am skipping the middle.
Oh,
I have I have heard
that
that
is
song
Dangerous.
so many times, and it just doesn't quite have the same effect for me. And it's got kind of like the Miss Murder syndrome for me, where
Yeah.
Mm,
it's like
Mhm.
AFI's most popular song and probably one of my least favorite AFI songs.
mhm,
Not that I don't like the middle, but it's just there are so many better Jimmy Eat World songs. So many songs that deserve to be big hits that are the middle is.
mm,
This is
mhm.
true. This is true. James, what do you think? What is the skipping song for you?
Yeah, I think I can appreciate everything that Jeff said for sure, and it really is interesting. The way that fans of bands do that, like we, especially like maybe there's a good, maybe it's a little bit of like a defense mechanism thing. Like
Mm,
whenever there's the song that like becomes the sort of like recognize like mainstream recognizable song where like normies kind of like get into like our special thing,
Yeah.
like it colors the song in a way where you're like you blame the song in a sense. And like the Miss Murder factor is a perfect example where it's like Miss Murder, like in a vacuum, Miss Murder is a really good song.
Yeah.
right.
Not my
Enjoyable.
favorite, you know. Um, not my favorite for sure, but like an enjoyable tune. But the fact that it was the one, like it was the lead single off December Underground, and you just go, So I totally hear where you're coming from with the middle. But I'm gonna go with My Sundown for sure.
My sundown. All right. Um,
But it's the
I,
wise choice.
it's a wise choice. I am not gonna lie. I have skipped this song for 23 years. I'm going to continue to skip this song. It's always what I skip. I skip Your House because I want
Mm,
to get to the sweetness, and that's it does not end for me. It will always be that way.
mm.
And it even after the last time I just listened to it, same thing happened. Same thing happened. So, all right, Jeff. Um, good luck with this. What do you think is the sleeper song on the album?
Well, I mean, literally, it was the sleeper song for me on this listen because I forgot about it and I fucking love it. So it's Cautioners. Everyone should
Cautioners,
love
yeah.
it.
James,
Mm.
what about you? What do you think is the sleeper track for you?
That's a really good question. Let me give this one some thought here.
It's a
Cautioners is a really good answer.
it's a
For
hard
me, it's
question.
get yeah, for me, it's Get It Faster. Um, big guitars, really kind of like driving song. I love Jim's sort of like the oh.
Yep.
Hmm.
There's such like a visceral sort of like, back to that tude factor. There's such a tude there. I just love that song so much. So yeah, that's my choice.
I'm going to agree with you because Get It Faster is a band. It's like it's the secret sauce of the album. Like even the part where like so Grant, yeah, we're gonna copy each other, but like even the part where like the guitar part where it's like banan, banana,
Oh, dude.
banan,
Yeah, yeah,
bump.
yeah.
Like
Yep.
it's amazing to listen to. It's probably the most I will say the best produced song on the entire
Yep.
album. It's an
Yep.
amazing track.
I think that's
Amazing
I think
track.
that's a perfect point. Yeah, for sure.
So I'm gonna go with Get It Faster as well. Look at that. Look at that. We're sticking yeah, side A. And then for the best song and side B for the I think yeah, Get It Faster on side B. Yeah, Get It Faster be on side B of for sleeper tracks. So there you go.
Hey Phil,
Yeah.
before you wrap up the show,
Yeah.
Darla's coming over here to
Oh,
refill the
should
coffee, and I just
oh
I
okay.
just I just gotta. There's a string hanging out from the back of her face that's falling off. I'm just gonna pull it. Oh my god! Oh my god! Look who it is!
Is it it can't be.
It is
Is Flow back?
Flo. It's been Flo the whole time. She was Darla the whole time. She faked her own murder.
This is a weird case of undercover boss. I don't understand what's going
I
on
I
right now.
well, Flo, it's great to see you, and I guess we've been seeing this whole time. We just didn't realize it. All right. Well, extra tip for Flo
I feel
for
much better
yeah.
about this. Yeah, this is much better.
I'm glad
Uh,
it didn't become a true crime podcast because that's where I felt like it was headed at some point. So
well, particularly when we brought Marlowe in for undercover detective to the diner, that really was
yeah,
taking this thing to a
yeah.
turn. Yeah. So folks, know be rest assured, Flo is back, and she'll be back for season 3. Also, want to let you know that we do have a couple of social media stuff. We've got Facebook, we have Threads, we have Instagram. We have the TikTokies, which we have a lot of fun on if you follow anything. And I've started doing more with threads, so go follow the threads. Remember, you can listen to us on Spotify. You can also watch us on YouTube. If you're watching us on YouTube, hello, everybody. Yeah, that's it. So we got the Spotify and the YouTube. If you guys are interested in, remember, we do have a store on TeePublic. If you do a search for Millennial Diner Podcast, you can then find some stuff, which is all created by our executive producer, my wife Megan, who spends a lot of time researching band logos to create, well, our logo on a different, band logo. So there are some new stuff out on the store. Remember to go check that out. She also has her own store on Etsy, which is still turning out studios. That is also available. Yeah, I think I covered everything this time.
You got it all.
I did.
Even your love of threads.
Even my love of threads.
That's been a character journey this whole season.
I will keep that going. I swear to God, I will keep that going. James, thanks for coming on the show. Do appreciate you coming down, spending time with the diner. How was the food? Food good?
Thanks for having me, boys. Food fantastic, unbelievable.
Good. The pancakes are always a safe bet.
Mm.
Jeff, let me ask you a question.
Okay.
I'm going to ask you another question. If, just say for fun, you could play any song right now, any song ever.
In the
What song would
history of songs?
Any song. Let's just say if you wanted to go out with a bang on one last song, what song would that be?
That's a lot of pressure, Phil.
It's a tremendous
But
amount of
I am going
pressure.
to take a page from Jimmy Eat World and be true to myself. And I want to hear Boy Division by My Chemical Romance.
All right, let's play it. Go ahead and play it.
Here's Boy Division by My Chemical Romance for some reason.
I'm not a My Chem guy, but I love the fact that they have a song called Boy Division. That's incredible.
Yeah. It's actually they have a bunch of they had like a scrapped album basically
Okay.
after Black Parade where they were gonna try to go a little bit more Detroit rock, down and dirty style. And there's some killer tracks that they eventually released it as kind of like EPs, like 2-song EPs. But that song was so good, and I'm like, it's I think it's one of their best songs they ever did. But I was like, oh, it's like a throwaway song. But then on this past reunion tour they just did, they played it pretty much every night, so
Wow.
they understand it. They realize what gold they have. So
they're one of those bands that I appreciate now with a little bit of kind of foresight or like hindsight. But it didn't, I just couldn't get into it at the time. And it's stupid. It's totally my own sort of like pretense and just kind of like annoying scene stuff. But I remember seeing them at Skate and Surf in Asbury Park in I don't remember what year. Probably like 01, no, probably like 02.
02 or 03 around there.
03, yeah. And I remember watching their set, and they like their set was like unbelievable, and the crowd response was like out of control. And I remember watching and going like, oh shit, okay, this band is gonna be massively popular. They sure were.
I was there, and I was probably in the front row of that crowd.
Okay.
Skate and Surf was a special time. I'm glad to hear someone else who went there. I feel like it's like a mythical festival now.
Totally, absolutely. I saw, there was a lot of great bands that played that year.
I went 2002, 2003, 2004. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I saw everybody there at some point.
Cool.
And with the best part was we got that hotel, that dilapidated hotel that was next to the convention center before Asbury Park went through its refurbishing, which it has now. It was still an eyesore back then. But that had this giant like 1920s grand hotel where everybody stayed, and the band stayed there too. So it was just a very wild experience.
Jeff, remember we started talking about this season, which bands would be the Take It Back Sunday or Alkaline Trio, the one that we constantly refer to. So at the end of the season 2, the score
the Mount
now,
Rushmores. This is the Mount Rushmores.
This is the Mount Rushmore tally. So at the end of season 2, the score is 6-5. Take It Back Sunday over Alkaline Trio. It's 6-5.
Wow.
Just goes to show you how important those bands are.
Yeah, absolutely. They make a lot of Mount Rushmores.
Mm-hmm. How do we want to end season 2, Jeff?
Well, we want to ask the audience a question.
Oh, we do.
Yeah.
What's the question?
Are you listening? Whoa!